We started out, we were wealthy men. We had enough when we needed it. Cripple your soul in a sea of shame. Run down your dreaming.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's sermon follow-up / home group discussion video of greatness. That's good. It's a good name. It's a good name. So this week we start a new series called Overflow. Pastor Gordon's given us, he's going to give us a rundown here. So this is a 3-week series that we're doing on everyone's favorite topic, money. And,
Excellent.
And it's actually going to be very, very good, and we're excited about it. So give us a quick overview of this week's message.
An overview
of Overflow.
Overflow.
Week 1.
Week 1, that's exactly right. Yeah. So the text for this particular series is really going to be centered all in one chapter for this particular 3 weeks. Now, jumping around and going from passage to passage is no doubt going to also happen. But the foundational text, where we'll be really all 3 weeks, is going to be out of 2 Corinthians chapter 9. 2 Corinthians 8 and 9 are really kind of parentheses, or they're bookends to the subject of stewardship, giving. A lot of different words that we find in the Bible on the subject of money and how we as believers and followers of Jesus Christ should handle that money, how we should handle the topic of wealth and poverty, of the needs that are exposed to us and our ability to meet those needs. Worship, giving is no doubt an act of worship. And so all of these different characteristics play into this. And so very much looking forward to it. Appreciate your prayers on making it through with what hopefully will be very beneficial things. In your intro, you have it there. You know, kind of start out with somewhat of a provocative question there of what's the percentage that you give? And then hopefully that next paragraph very much clarifies that that's sort of tongue-in-cheek, because what we just got out of was a series on abiding. And my goal is not to switch now midstream and start talking about the fruit as though that's what's important. The thing that's important is still abiding. But what we are going to look at is one of the many types of fruit that is produced from abiding. And so I do, in all seriousness, want you to keep that in mind. The intent is not to put a barrier between us and God on the subject of money. It's actually to remove barriers and deal with it more openly.
Yeah, so. It's good. And each question, I mean, certainly this week, I mean, you can go into the weeds and get into some unproductive areas. But we want you to stay out of the weeds. You don't need to get in it. It's going to be uncomfortable for some people. It really doesn't need to be. It really doesn't need to be.
That's right.
We're not trying to dig into that side of it. We're trying to look at the heart. We're trying to look at motives, things like that. Which I think it'll kind of play itself out pretty well if we understand and keep above the line there.
Right.
So the first question here says, some give spontaneously while others prepare far in advance. Which are you typically? Is either one better, and why? That's actually a pretty easy question, although when you first might read it, you're like, I don't know what I want to say. And as a leader, you might be like, let's skip questions 1 through 6 and just play a game. Don't do that. It's not that bad. It's not that scary. So anyway, yeah, that's the first question. Do you give spontaneously, or do you plan, or both, and what's better?
Yeah, and hopefully this doesn't put anybody on edge. Like he said, you might think it would. Hopefully it doesn't, and you as leaders, if you're leading the discussion, hopefully you can kind of use this as, number one, like we always say, is just kind of icebreaker. Everyone is kind of, what's funny is that everyone is kind of included in this. No one is viewed on the outside of this. The issue is not like the opening question, which is meant to be funny, up at the top in the intro. This particular question is not meant to exclude anybody. All of us want to give. We all want to be good stewards of what God has given us. What is your natural temperament? Is your natural temperament to give when opportunities come? Is it to give spontaneously when that need presents, or are people allow them to talk about, no, I'm actually more of a budgeter of my giving. I kind of I forecast out, and I kind of plan for it. And that's all the further that really needs to go. The goal, again, is not to alienate people. It's just to invite that everyone gets to discuss this. If you were to give, what is your more natural tendency to give? Is it on the fly? Or is it in preparation leading up to that? And I think you don't have to be afraid of this one at all.
No,
it's very straightforward.
Not at all. And some people might be both. I mean, Sarah and I, it's kind of our personalities and maybe giftings as well are different in these areas somewhat.
Yeah.
partly because I'm the one that does the budget, and I'm like, what? No, I'm just kidding. So we kind of do both. We have a certain amount we plan every month, and then
Right.
there's a certain amount where we hope that an opportunity will present
Yeah,
itself.
that's really good.
And some months it does, some months it doesn't. Sarah does something really crazy. This is good crazy though. There's from time to time she'll get unexpected money, right? She'll get a check for something random or whatever it would be, and she has an envelope that she keeps with her. I'm not going to tell you where. I don't know why you asked me that, but she keeps it with her, and
Stop
at
that.
times, right? Yeah, and she'll pray. I know she was talking about this last week. She'll pray sometimes before she goes to the grocery store. Lord, if there's someone you want me to give this to, let me know who it is. And she gets kind of excited about it, and she gets kind of disappointed when nobody pops up when that opportunity isn't there. And sometimes she'll just grab some of the money out. Sometimes she'll give. One story she told she gave this person she saw in the parking lot somewhere, and she's like, I hope they ask me for money. I just hope they ask. And she's just waiting. Totally opposite of everybody else. We're like, I hope they don't ask. They drive. She's like, please ask. I'm going to stare at them until they ask. And they came up, and sure enough, they started a conversation with her, and I think she kind of egged them on to ask her, and she just reached in and gave them the envelope, and she had no idea how much was in it. She said it couldn't have been as much as $350. And that's pretty awesome. So anyway, there's different ways to do it. There's different approaches, and I would say neither one is better than the other.
Right.
It's the heart of the matter.
Yeah, is there a better way? No, there's not a better way. And I would share Kyle's example of sometimes it's both. I mean, you're planning for the spontaneity, just
Right.
what you said.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's kind of it's a both and. You may have a certain amount, just as he said, where you set aside, and then you also plan for the freedom to be able to do it on spontaneous occasions. So no, there is not a better than. That's the
Everybody's going to follow my wife around and disguise themselves in a
Very
parking
needy
lot.
ways.
Do it. I might do the same thing. All right, second question. Second question here, is Paul flattering the Corinthians? And why is Paul's letter not an example of religious coercion or manipulation? Which when you look at it out of context, it's pretty easy to kind of see, well, maybe what is he doing there is a little shady. So that's that question, and compare that specifically with Philippians 4, 10 through 19.
Yeah. So in this one, he is pleading with them to finish their plans of giving to a need that is back in Jerusalem. So the Corinthian church is giving towards those who are needy in Jerusalem. In Philippians 4, it's really towards him, which is really interesting if you go and you look at that either as a group or maybe you've gone as a leader maybe to go ahead and look at it in advance of that. There are two very different scenarios. One is for the needs of others, and that's the one we're looking at. And in the Philippians 4 example, it's the needs for Paul himself. He's like, you have met my needs, and I know you're sending more to me, and I'm overwhelmed by that. But in either case, I think why it's not manipulation or coercion is on a number of levels. One, he says, this is to be added to your account. And I believe Paul means that. I mean, we have to sort of take him at his word, that what he is saying is, you are actually, I know, God has showed me that by your generosity, your account is being built up in eternal things. Your account. I'm helping you invest. He's kind of a financial advisor from an eternal perspective. That's what Paul is serving as this. I want to help you know that you are investing in eternal things. And it's being credited to your account. I'm not manipulating you. And even in that personal example of Philippians 4, he says, look, I've learned to live with much and I've learned to live with very little. It really doesn't matter what comes to me, but I want you guys to receive the credit for what you have done.
Yeah.
And so it's very different from manipulation and coercion.
It is, and I think the example we have in Paul can prove that that's true, right? I mean, sometimes when you look at it, you don't know the person, you don't know their motives, you're like, what's going on? But with Paul, it's clear
Right.
that's not his motivating factor. And his history, and then in what we see even here in that passage of
Right.
Philippians, proves that, and we see his testimony throughout all
Yeah.
of the New Testament. We get that, so we can mimic that.
That's right.
And certainly we see in that, goes right along with that question, he has quite a confidence in them, and he is really boasting about them and about their generosity and all
Right.
these things. So the next question goes right into that. On what does Paul base his boasting and his confidence in their giving?
Yeah, and he has seen it. He has seen it play out, and he has heard them. If we were to jump back to chapter 8, and I've given it there to you to read if you were to want to as a background to chapter 9, of course. is that early in chapter 8, he talks about you guys have been preparing yourselves for this. And I'm just wanting you to see it all the way to the end. And my boasting in you has been your commitment to see it fulfilled. That's what I'm boasting in. I'm not boasting in the amount, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. I'm not boasting in any of that. I'm boasting that the Lord has already prepared you in your heart to do this. As we talk on Sunday, these 5 verses, 2 Corinthians 9, 1-5, are very interesting verses. I mean, Paul is talking really interesting things. Like, he's talking about hard issues, money, just like we're saying, from a very honest and real standpoint. He does not dance around this. And so he is confident that they are going to do it. But he also wants to reinforce, don't make me not be confident. Don't give me reason to lack confidence, because I'm confident. So I'm asking you to fulfill that sense of confidence, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
Well, he said confidence a lot there. I don't know. No, it's totally true. Absolutely. Totally lost you there.
really, I'm talking about blue jeans.
I'm confident about that. Yeah. All right. That's good, though. Rewind that and watch it again. Question number 4 here. Why is Paul so adamant about them giving? And what would you do or say to promote continual generosity?
Yeah, and so sort of overlapping what we've already said, they're crediting it to their account. They're getting the opportunity to, again, invest in eternal things. There is reward that they can anticipate. There is a sense of approval. There's a sense of joy that they are bringing to the Lord because of what they are doing, and he wants to reinforce that. He wants to give them that. So he is adamant. Well, that helps us know that when we talk about these subjects, and sometimes any of me or Kyle or even you among each other, when you talk so convincingly about the issue of money, you can do so because what is your motive? What was his motive? Was his motive to coerce and to manipulate? No, his motive was to help them see the fruit of their abiding in Christ, and one of the fruit being generosity. You know, he's doing it for them. I want you to see that. And so when we talk about the subject, I think we have reason to be just as convincing in that feeling. I am doing this so that you experience the joy of what it is to display this fruit that God is doing in your life.
Yeah, I totally. And I think a lot of times when we talk about it, maybe more so when we think about it because we don't want to talk about it, we sort of file it and think about it in terms of loss, right? Whatever we're going to give. Oh, this is how much can I afford to lose, or how much can I afford? And he's flipping that upside down here. It's
Right.
it's not loss. He counts all that as gain because those are things that are not going to burn up. You know,
That's right.
That's going to last, and providing his heart is where it should be, right? Which goes right back into our last series.
Yeah.
And so we got to change our viewpoint, our approach of, okay, this is loss, just count it as loss, or how much can I afford to lose? You know, this
So
is an
great.
investment that will never come back. And totally the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah.
Totally the wrong way to look at it.
That's actually excellent. I mean, just as he was saying that much better than I did, it made me think of the idea of turning temporal things into eternal. Like you are literally transforming something temporal, money, into something eternal. Reward and joy and thanksgiving. And that, I mean, fruit, absolutely, totally. And so what an amazing transformation. You are taking something that is going to, in other cases, burn and give it eternal value. That's
Yeah,
so very good.
that's good.
So, good.
We should just stop right there.
That
Don't
really-
worry about
why
the
are we
other
going
questions.
forward?
That
Yeah.
No, we'll go ahead and push through here. Yeah. But that is a good question to camp on.
Yeah,
You know, for a while,
yeah.
if you can get to that. Next question. There is no mention of an amount. That's a big deal too. There's no mention of an amount. If they discussed it beforehand, we don't know what it is. The label in 2 Corinthians 9 is simply generous. What is the measure of generosity? And then compare that, of course, with 2 Corinthians 8, 1-3, and Mark 12, 41-42.
Yeah.
I love that.
So Mark 12 is very familiar of the widow's mites, or the widow's coins, however your Bible translates that. And Jesus says she gave more than anyone else, and she gave only 2 little, just cents, nothing of value. And she gave more in Jesus' estimation. In 2 Corinthians 8, it talks about the model is that of Jesus. That's God's gift to us. That's how generous he was his own son. And early in chapter 8, it even says, you gave up to your ability and even beyond your ability. So I guess the question would be, what is generous? We all want to know what that is, and this will come out in later weeks of the series. Is there an amount? Can I come to the line of a tangible dollar figure or an amount, or what am I? And I think really what it comes down to is the issue is generosity. The standard is beyond what you would ever ask or imagine of even yourself to give, and to stretch and to see that there really is no limit. If it's all God's, which clearly we know that's the case, if it's all God's, then it's all His. And it's just a matter of trying to get a different perspective on generous. What's the dollar amount that gets me to the level that can be called generous? There isn't. There is not. And so, I think you'll find that as you compare it, obviously the widow's mite was unbelievably, the widow's coins was generous beyond generous. Well, that doesn't make a bit of sense to us, that was generous or that was a lot. It wasn't, but it was a matter of the heart. So
yeah, and with that particular example, right? I love that example. The fact that Jesus said she gave more, right, just shows that He is not counting dollar amount.
right.
I mean, like you said, that is not even in the realm of this is what's important, this is what's not important. It's completely the heart. And I would say that Jesus He takes that and bears fruit with 2 cents.
Right.
In the life of the person that gave it.
That's right.
To a greater capacity than the person that writes a check for $40,000 because they want a tax write-off and they've got millions and it doesn't even affect them, right?
That's right.
Now, don't get me wrong, we'll take that $40,000. My address is, I'll put it at the bottom of the screen. No, it's the idea is totally right here flashing. Right? Obviously, that comment that Jesus makes, right? She gave more. That should just let light bulbs go off in our head. Like, oh, wait a minute. Once again, she didn't count that as loss, and her grief. I think you mentioned this a few weeks back. Her grief wasn't that she gave it all away; it was that she didn't have more to give away.
Well, yeah, I think that was you too.
Well, that was brilliant. Then whoever said that, really, yeah.
The laborers.
Yeah. Well, I think I stole it from you. All right. Final question.
Finish. Yes.
Yep. Why is follow through on a financial commitment or any other commitment so important?
Yeah. I think really what I want for you guys, if you get here, and again, there's 6 questions this week, and they are all they could take a lot of time. So whichever ones you get to, if you do get to this last one or you find this one to be a really helpful one, I think where I'm going with it is, why is follow through so important? Obviously, he speaks to it from chapter 8 into chapter 9, what we're looking at, and he talks about fulfill your commitment. That's really where you are demonstrating. We all have the big talk, and then we all struggle with being on the other end of that, actually coming through. And the coming through is really what counts. The coming through, whatever the amount is. If I say I'm going to give $5 and I give $5, there's a beauty in fulfilling your commitment versus the one who says I'm going to give $100 and doesn't give anything. And that goes right back to, I was sharing with Kyle, the parable of the 2 sons from a few weeks ago in our Vineyard series, and in the idea of abiding, of not doing what you say or maybe repenting of it and following through. And so that's really where this comes from. And he says pretty clearly, I want you to finish what you started, because it demonstrates that you get it. We can all, go big and finish weak, and the issue is to count your cost and follow through, and that shows a real sense of obedience. It shows a sense of loyalty to what you agreed, and that I trust, God, you are going to give. You are going to supply what I need and what they need as I give. So follow through.
Very good.
All right.
Right on. All right. And so just to kind of reiterate a little bit of what Gordon said there are a lot of questions. They are all good. I didn't write them. I can say that. They're all good. They can all take a lot of time. You can go pretty deep with any of them.
Right.
So don't feel like you got to run through them all to get to them. To get to all of them. In fact, if you want to look through and find ones that you're like, man, I think our group will really be able to do well with this.
Absolutely.
Then you can pick through, 3 or 4 of them,
Right.
and see how it goes in that sense. Cherry pick them, so to speak, and get the ones that you think will.
Yeah, this way you'll have plenty, and if you only use a few of them, that's great. The idea is to create plenty of opportunity for discussion to happen.
Yep. Very good. All right, we are praying for you. This is the end of the video.